Normally for my trade reviews, I would manually type everything into my TradeZella journal, but this week I wanted to try something new. By recording my journal, I think it's going to help me articulate more than I would if I was just typing it. So let me know if this is a good format, and we'll just get into it. For the week of April 19th through the 25th, I've had 4 trades so far. Today is only Thursday, but I'm actually going to be out of town for the next couple days, so I'm not going to have any more trades this week. So I figured I'd go ahead and get this in here today. So let's just dive right in to Monday. I had 2 trades here on Monday, 1 winner and 1 loser. On both of the days that I traded this week, I had some really frustrating experiences. So let's start with this first trade here. And what we can see on my chart is I took a short position right here at this entry. So we had a 3 touch point trend line break that I had been looking at for quite some time. This top downward line also was a 3 touch point, so I was really just waiting to see which direction it was going to go. And when I entered, I put my stop loss on this blue horizontal line right here. And initially I had put my take profit right here on this blue horizontal down below. I wasn't planning on letting it get that far unless there was just a really strong like momentum candle. I was looking more at taking profit in this area right here, as this is what I'd like to call a pivot point to where the price could go right back up. But you can see here within 10 minutes, price started to go against me. Since this is on the 5-minute chart in gold. And this is why this trade was frustrating, is because normally I really allow myself to have this nice wiggle room where I'll put my stop loss on the other side of a nearby high level or a nearby low level. And in this case, I had my stop loss right above this candle right here. Which I have a screenshot a little bit further down. I can show you exactly where I had it placed. So I had it placed right here, right above that big candle before price went down. When I'm in the higher time frames, I'm really good about just giving it the time it needs and letting the price action determine what we're going to do with the trade. But in this case, I got really scared by this momentum right here as this was going up. And in the past, I've let my losers run a little bit too long. And so I was like, I'm going to get ahead of it this time. And I closed as soon as I saw that price break my safety line, this downward trend line. And in this case, right after I sold and took that loss, the price just went right where I wanted it to go. And this is frustrating because even though I was right, as you can see here, the price was going down, I really doubted myself and I doubted my system. And that's why I have this loss here, not because the market went against me or it faked me out. I mean, it did fake me out, but this was my shortcoming, and that's really what I have to learn here. Is in these lower time frames, I still need to allow myself the correct wiggle room for my stop loss. I was risking only $300 on this trade, so I still ended up with a pretty okay loss. It wasn't my full amount, and just to make insult to injury worse, this was the big move on Monday. And you can see price just kept going and going and going, and it just fell off a cliff. And I probably could have turned what I expected to be, a $300 trade into, I don't know, a $2,000 trade. Who knows? If I had let it get down here and I saw this lower low continue down, I might have just started moving, my take profit a little bit lower. And that's why this was frustrating. But I'm still getting used to the 5-minute time frame. I'd been trading in the 4-hour for so long. So let's go ahead and move over to our second trade. And this is also on Monday the 20th. And this was a small win. All right, so for the second trade, this is also in micro gold in the 5-minute time frame. And this isn't something that I would normally take because this downward trend line is so steep. I normally don't like looking at trend lines that are steeper than about 45 degrees. But as you can see here, this one had 1, 2, 3, basically 4 touch points. And I saw it bounce. I saw price action bounce off of my upward trend line and this key level right here. And so what I was expecting to happen And yeah, it could have ran a little bit further, but I really just wanted to play it safe in the market right now with the geopolitical climate. I don't really trust the market to stay going one way for too long. So I really been focusing on like taking my singles, my base hits, and walking away with profit when if I hold a little bit longer, my risk goes up quite a bit and it could go against me. So when I saw this bounce off this key level, I went ahead and entered in a long position, and it broke through my 4 touch point downward trend line. And right according to my plan, it went right up to this key level right here where I had my take profit planned. And I wasn't expecting it to close out within 3 bars. So in this case, a little less than 15 minutes, but a win is a win. So I took it, and I made back all the money that I had lost earlier in the day. This was about 5 hours or so later, 5.5 hours later. So I'm really focusing on not over trading as well. So I made sure that these trades were spaced out enough that I had a clear head and that I had a real reason for entering, and I wasn't just trying to make back my money. But in this case, I did. I almost made double back what I had lost. So all in all, this was a pretty good win. I was really happy with how this ended. And I almost considered just stopping for the week right here, just because clearly I wasn't thinking super straight when I let this loss happen. But I got my confidence back with this trade here. But that was my last trade for Monday. So now my next trades are on Wednesday. So let's take a quick look at Wednesday. And it looks like I actually had 2 winners on Wednesday. I have some pretty good screenshots of my trade. So let's go ahead and use the screenshots for this one. So as we go into here, you can get a clear picture of what I was looking at. And I actually have my lines marked on this one for everyone to see. I had in the 1 hour time frame, this downward trend line had a 3 touch point trend. The upward trend line here is also a 5-minute trend line, since I don't have the higher time frame mark. And I entered again off the bounce because we are right near this key level, and every key level, it's not going to happen right on that line every time. There's always like a buffer zone, and that buffer zone was right in line with my trend line. So I had enough momentum here that I decided, let's go ahead and jump in here. Since we already had 3 touch points, that provided a higher probability that this bounce was going to continue bouncing at this point, since it wasn't breaking through. We had this big pushback on this candle right here. So I entered in here, and you can see over here, this is actually a really big order size for me. I've been trading the 1 ounce gold, but this week I've been playing around with the micro gold, because in these lower time frames, I've been able to do significantly more contracts in the 1 ounce gold, and I didn't like playing around with like 29 contracts. So I went to the micro gold to have fewer contracts. But in this case, because I was on the bounce and I had my stop loss set right here, right around this key level, my risk was still $300. I always risk around $300 for my account right now, since it's a 25K account. That puts me at just a little bit over 1% risk. And because I took a bounce, my risk was so much lower that I had 9 contracts. And this is what led me to my frustrating trade for Wednesday, is everything was going according to plan on this one. But in Pacific time, 2 o'clock is when the market closes for the day. And as you can see, we're a little bit after 1 o'clock here. And I didn't realize what time it was when I entered this trade, which is a pretty rookie mistake on my part. But I decided to let it ride out just because I had such high conviction on it. We were in this channel with these high strength trend lines. This is why this was frustrating. So I did win at $113, but right about a quarter till 2 o'clock, I noticed that my trade was closed. There was a market order to close my trade, and I had no idea why. And it turns out I didn't have enough cash in my account to cover the margin for all 9 of those contracts. Since we were going to be carrying that trade over during the 1 hour period where the futures market closes, that counts as an overnight trade. So while I had enough margin to place the intraday trade, I didn't have enough margin to carry it through. So my broker, who is Ninja Trader, closed my trade for me. And luckily, I was in profit when that happened. But it's still frustrating, because if I had thought ahead, I could have sized down, and then I could have let this trade ride out. And you'll see in my next trade that it actually ended up going exactly where I wanted it to go, and that was right up to this next key level where I was planning on closing out of this trade. which you can see here, I had my sell limit right up here by this key level. So all in all, that was a good trade. It was well thought out. It was well executed. I had a very low risk setup. And it was very high probability that my setup was going to continue because of those 3 touch points on that trend line. But as we move into my next trade, which was about 2 hours later, the market had reopened at this point. And you can see here, this is where I got closed out on my previous trade, and this is where it ended up going. So we actually would have gotten that whole move when market reopened. And after market opened, I let this candle play out, and then I saw this candle here. So we had this huge pushback after market open, about 10 minutes in, and I entered on my 3 touch point break. And the reason I entered here is because after market open, there's a lot of momentum, and previously it respected that line. But we all know that when something is that strong with a 3 touch point, if it doesn't respect it, it's going to break through. And then there's a strong chance that it's turned that resistance into support. So in this case, we already had our fake breakthrough here. So now we're on our second breakthrough. And I went in with that high momentum, which we can see down here in our volume. And then as we look at how that trade played out, I was a lot more patient with it, and I still let it get to that next key level before I closed out. I held through. I wanted to let it keep going, and then I reminded myself that we're looking for singles. We're not looking for home runs in this environment right now. So I added this steeper dotted safety line right here. And so when I saw this candle push up and start to cross over, I went ahead and let it close out. But it ended up being a really good trade. You can see I was up nearly the entire trade, so it barely went against me at all. And so those are my 4 trades for this week, and we had 3 winners and we had 1 loser, but there were 2 kind of frustrating issues that impacted my psychology a little bit, but I did a good job, I think, of really clearing my head and waiting enough time to see a clear new setup before diving back into the market. I didn't want a revenge trade. Obviously, I wanted to make that money back, but the goal is always to make money when you're trading. So that wasn't really a key factor here. I still waited for very good structure before I entered my trades, and then I followed through with my plan. I could have actually gotten more on this trade here. If we want to look at this guy here, I can zoom out, and you can look at this. So just like we saw in those pictures, I closed here when this candle broke through my steeper trend line that was going right down here. But look at this. If I had held through a little bit longer, I would have had some consolidation I would have to wait through. And at this point, if I was waiting through this much consolidation, it would probably be going against my strategy because I'd have to give it so much wiggle room. And at what point is it too much wiggle room? And that's really up to you to decide. But I think that would have been too much. I think I would have been, basically praying for a bigger win at this point. It did end up going down, and I probably would have closed down in here, probably on this big push up right here, if I had seen that go through, because I wouldn't have liked to see that big momentum push. But if I had kept holding, look at that, it would have been a crazy big move. But I don't think it would have been smart to do. It wouldn't have been safe to do. And you definitely would have had consolidation here. You would have had a break here that you would need to get out on, and another break here. So to hold through this move here, you would have needed to be in a higher time frame for this strategy. But that's all I have for this week. Let me know if this was a good format and if it was easy to understand. I'm happy to make some changes, but I think I'm going to try to continue on with the video format for my trades, for my trade reviews, and see where this goes. I'll see you guys next week if I have any trades. Let me know if this was a good format and if it was easy to understand. I'm happy to make some changes, but I think I'm going to try to continue on with the video format for my trades, for my trade reviews, and see where this goes. I'll see you guys next week if I have any trades.